What's up, Renegades? Thanks for tuning in. Today I am here with Ben Heisler, who is our associate producer of RPGs here at Renegade, and he's here to talk about the brand new G.I. Joe role-playing game Intercontinental Adventures Factions in Action Volume 2 Sourcebook. So
That's the
say hi,
one.
Ben. Yeah, that's the one.
One
Um,
of our longest titles to date. Yeah, hey everybody, I'm Ben Eisler. I'm the associate producer of RPGs, as Anaya said, which means I do a lot of work on the G.I. Joe, Power Rangers, Transformers role-playing games, and also some work on My Little Pony. But I'm not as close to that as some other awesome people are. And I'm super excited to talk about our upcoming second edition, or second volume rather, of Factions in Action. We're going to be exploring three major factions, which is going to be the Arashikage Ninja Clan, the Dreadnought Mercenary Biker Gang, and the October Guard, which are a group that defend Eastern Bloc countries. In addition to that, we have six additional factions. Part of the Arashikage chapter has Cobra's Red Ninjas and G.I. Joe's Ninja Force. And then we also have four customizable factions this time around, which are freedom fighters, mercenaries, criminal organizations, and international syndicates. Most of the factions in here are neutral factions. Obviously, the Red Ninjas belong to Cobra, and the Ninja Force belong to G.I. Joe, but you can customize the freedom fighters, mercenaries, criminal organizations, and international syndicates as you need to fit your game. And it's full of tools for that in the book.
Great. Yeah. So as you may tell, this is going to be a deep dive on this new book. This has been a really highly anticipated source book. I think since eagle-eyed gamers saw that the first Factions in Action was titled Volume 1, I think people have been anticipating this one, Volume 2.
Yep.
So we're really excited that it's finally going to be coming out soon, and we're excited to share more about it. Love to get started. I'd love to know a little bit more about the Arashikage. What can you tell us about this clan?
Yeah, so the Arashikage are a Japanese ninja clan. They've been a big part of G.I. Joe for a long time. The enigmatic Snake Eyes was first featured in 1982, and Storm Shadow followed in 1984 with his first appearance in the Silent Interlude comic issue, which is one of the most famous issues of G.I. Joe comics. Also now available as a G.I. Joe deck building game expansion. So at the end of this comic, it revealed that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow have the matching tattoos of the Ninja Clan, and from there spun out this incredible story of brotherhood, betrayal, and redemption that appeals to a lot of fans. Plus, it brings a lot of interesting direction that kind of broadens G.I. Joe's reach instead of just purely being a military fantasy, but also having these elements. So the Arashikage in this group are presented as a neutral faction that have trained both G.I. Joes and Cobra agents. As I said earlier, it contains both the Ninja Force, which is G.I. Joe's faction that Storm Shadow put together after he left and joined G.I. Joe, and also the Cobra Red Ninja faction, which are a group of renegade ninjas that work for Cobra.
But not renegade ninjas, but
Yeah, well, I
renegade
mean,
ninjas.
yeah, they don't run around in blue polos, if that's what you're saying. Uh, Regardless, we're super excited to have them involved in the book as well.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. This is definitely a huge this is a huge deal for fans of the original comic.
Yeah, so both that, and we've seen a lot more of the ninja side of G.I. Joe recently with the most recent movie, not counting the cameo at the end of the Transformers most recent
Spoiler.
Transformers movie. Yeah,
It's
well,
been
I
out for a
guess
while. It's not a spoiler.
it's a fun movie. Go see it. You might learn things. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, it's a popular part of G.I. Joe that we haven't touched on as much because we really wanted to do it justice, and that that has taken us. We really want to do it justice, which has taken us on a path of working with cultural consultants and sensitivity readers and making sure that the authors that we had involved in this section and other sections of the book had experience in that part of the world or were from there, so that they had they knew going into it what was important about it and how to respectfully portray it as a Japanese culture that has all these fantastic elements of betrayal and ninjas showing up everywhere, and occasionally some quasi-mystic powers and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just about to ask what you did to prepare to take on such a iconic storyline that fans are so it's so recognizable to the fans, but it sounds like you just hired the right kind of people to be telling these stories as part of it also.
Yeah, it's a large part of that, and we're also really fortunate to have Ryan Costello as our at the helm of many of our GI Joe source books, including this one, and his immense knowledge of GI Joe and connections helped us um, find the right people to write on the team and to give them the chance to share these things authentically, so that we're doing it right.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. I will say, just like personally for you, is it
Mhm.
ever nerve-wracking to be writing for these like massive kind of game worlds that have these like multi generations of like fans that just like live and breathe GI Joe? Is it ever like nerve-wracking, or is it more just exciting?
It hasn't. I don't think it's been particularly nerve-wracking because, like, I think one of the coolest parts about my job is that I'm one of those people that grew up with G.I. Joe. Power Rangers was on when I was a kid. My brother was really into Transformers, so I had a lot of experience through that. And it's getting to um, share with nostalgic fans who then can share with their kids and continue these brands that have gone on for so long and speak to so many people um, for their various aspects. Like one of the things that uh, has always been impressive to me about both GI Joe and Power Rangers, that there's this wide variety of people from different backgrounds that come together to complete these missions and stop evil. And um, I'm really excited about every time I get to bring a new aspect of that to a book and to the fans. And I'm really happy that they've been receptive to the books and plans and cool stuff we put out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, a lot of these stories are just about, saving the world and doing the right thing. So I think that resonates with most
Hmm.
people in general.
Hmm. And it's also exciting that we have the Decepticon directive source book for Transformers. We have the Cobra Codex for G.I. Joe, and
Hmm.
in Finster's Monster-Matic cookbook for Power Rangers. All of these books have options for playing the bad guys. So if you want to
Sure.
engage in
Yeah.
your overly dramatic cartoon villainy, like we're there for that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very multifaceted and it's
Hmm.
fun to play different kinds of characters. Well, the Arashikage sounds super cool. I would love to know more about the Dreadnoks. Can you tell me who are the Dreadnoks?
Yeah. So the Dreadnoks are this super cool semi-anarchist bike gang that is based in the Florida Everglades for the most part. It's led by the master spies Zartan and Zorana, and their other brother. Um, there's a recurring joke. The third brother has this kind of ability where people like he blends in and people forget that he exists. And so we've kind of built that into how we describe things. So it's often, yes, Zartan, Zorana, and their other brother. That's that person. Um, but uh, but anyways, they're often aligned with Cobra, but they also do a lot of stuff on their own. They have their own mythology and a deep team roster, as they've been with the brand for a long time. Um, and this gives you an opportunity to be a faction that uh, is a little more diabolically inclined without not always having to work for this giant multi-national
Right.
scheme that Cobra has.
Yeah, a little play by your own rules kind of
Yeah.
vibe. Yeah.
Um, and plus that, the Dreadnoks have some of the coolest vehicles in G.I. Joe because they're all kind of um, one of the cool things about the Dreadnoks is that they take machines apart and put them back together, often into big racing rigs. So we get to um, have a lot of cool vehicles that are much more ramshackle or homemade compared to a lot of the shiny Mars Industry designed Cobra
Sure.
vehicles.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give us like any kind of sneak peeks of what kind of new mechanics are going to be introduced in this book?
Sure. So specifically the Dreadnought chapter, we have some building off of Quartermaster's Guide to Gear, which introduced our first vehicle upgrades options. We have both playing the high stakes game of chicken and seeing who is going to blink first on the roadways, and then something that's very familiar to Dreadnought stories is boarding, which is leaping from one vehicle to another in the middle of a race or a high-speed chase to go have fisticuffs with the other drivers or passengers. And it's kind of this, it adds a fun element to vehicle combat that we haven't had before, that is very daring and Dreadnoughty as
Yeah,
far as like,
absolutely.
this is going to be awesome. What consequences?
It's
So,
great. Definitely a good faction for those rebellious players that like to take
mhm.
risks with things. And that kind of leads us to our the third faction that's introduced in this book, the October Guard. So Ben, can you tell us a bit more about who are the October Guard?
Sure. So the October Guard are so they're a group that's similar to G.I. Joe in that they're from a number of different countries that are brought together for defense. And these are mostly former Soviet countries across Eastern Europe and Asia that are now part of what's called the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO. And so it's exciting because a lot of the time, or rather in the past, fairly frequently, it was kind of like the Russian answer to G.I. Joe.
Sure.
But having moved beyond the Cold War and into more modern times, it allows for more interesting stories to be told in these Eastern Bloc areas, or to expand past that for threats that apply to any of these CSTO countries. Um, and it's led by a really cool guy named Colonel Brekov, who's a pragmatic leader. And the team is full of cool characters, like the sharpshooter Dinah, the big muscled rocket launcher toting horror show, and many more, um, including a flamethrower specialist that we were excited to include.
I That's my next question. So you told me last week about some kind of cool stuff with that flamethrower. Could you spill the beans a bit to the audience and tell us about the flamethrower?
Sure. So this is kind of a perfect place to put it because we both have on the October Guard side Dragonski, and on the Dreadnought side we have Torch, both of who use flamethrowers. And so we wanted to explore kind of how that works with both a short range cone effect, and also this is our first instance of ongoing damage, where if you don't put yourself out, you'll continue to take fire damage even after the initial attack, which in our low health system makes it both very dangerous and also a powerful weapon, but also leaves you very vulnerable if enemies take the downshifts to shoot at your fuel tanks. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love that mechanic so much. I think ongoing damage is something you see in video games a lot,
Mhm.
but it doesn't really show up in RPGs very often. So it's really cool, like you said, that adding this with the low health system makes it a lot more lethal. I
Yep.
find that really exciting because I love combat. That's why.
I really enjoy that our low health system makes combats meaningful because they're very dangerous.
Yeah.
Um, and if you work and put things to your advantage, then you're not at too much risk, especially if you have cover and other ways to mitigate enemy attacks. But it means that you kind of have to be a little bit smarter, or you have to build yourself in a way where you can be like, again, consequences what? And leap onto the enemy vehicle.
Yeah, I think it's what's cool about having a low health system is that it makes it feel like every decision you make is important,
Hmm.
especially in those tense situations. And, with the Dreadnoks too, it's great to have that kind of reckless, behavior that you can tap
Yeah.
into for that kind of like those daredevil players, which I definitely have been known to be a daredevil player at times. I like to
I'm
live on
not
the edge.
I'm not at all surprised.
Me? What?
What?
But it also it's great for those kinds of players that really like to analyze every single thing in this situation,
Hmm.
every single move, every single action that they take, every choice that they make during a campaign. So I think it brings a lot more importance and a lot more agency to the players. And it can be kind of fun for the GMs too, because
Yeah.
you know, you're giving them a hard time, and they got to play smart.
Yep. It's one
Um,
of my
yeah,
favorite things when I was running the GI Joe game. I haven't run it a bit now, but I'm still super excited for all the work we get to do on it.
yeah. Great. So we covered all the factions, but I'd love to talk more about the world because, as we can tell with the different factions, this is a very kind of broader spectrum of the world in
Yep.
general and different locations and how different locations affect different factions. So I would love to hear more about that if you have
Yeah. Oh, sure. So one of the reasons that we called this one Intercontinental Adventures, both having various international factions, was also because the last chapter in this book is kind of a primer or a foundation for how to run adventures and here are some NPCs, here are some story hooks, here are some various things that you can do when you're running your adventures in exciting faraway places. Um, and with that both comes the change of scenery, but also making sure that you're true to the location and its culture and its technological level of development and amount of resources and things like that to make sure that you're not just playing the same game with a different scene setting. Um, and so I'm really excited that we had some authors, non-US centric authors, that were able to write sections for adventures on each of the different continents, and then specific, as I said before, story hooks and NPCs that apply to different nations and areas on those continents. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice that it's not just a copy paste into a different location. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when game masters decide to switch it up and move to a new location, or I read different
mhm.
RPG source books at a different location, but it doesn't seem like the location actually has any weight or bearing or importance on the story that's being told. So
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
yeah, it's great to hear that all of that was taken into consideration and it's creating a more fleshed out and exciting world for both players and for game masters.
I always look at location as a character, kind of
Yeah,
as an
absolutely.
NPC that's around that represents various things. And like when you want to change things up in a scene to make sure that you're pulling from things that make sense there and that are different, because we travel to these places to experience something that is not just adventures at home. And so part of that is the excitement, and part of that is also making sure that we pay respect so that it's not a stereotype or a cookie cutter type of situation.
In this book, like what else can we expect as far as game master tools go? Obviously, we have these really like fleshed out locations, but what else can game masters look forward to in this book?
Sure. So each chapter has sets of contacts in the organizations that they're in, or towards the end of that last chapter, we also have a variety of international agents, both on the GI Joe and Cobra side. So there are new tools to be your liaisons, or if you are running an adventure in the area where they operate, they can serve as a contact or a threat. And the nice thing is we have both GI Joe and Cobra options. So if you're playing that Dastardly Cobra campaign, you have heroes to oppose right and ready to go. Plus, in each chapter, we also delve into like, hey, what are the important things when you're doing a campaign that's not GI Joe, but is instead the Arashikage Ninja Clan? Like, what's
Sure, yeah.
important in those traditional stories that you may want to include so that it feels like that type of story to your players, and you can get that storytelling and engagement that we all kind of yearn for at a table.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Let's end it on a fun one.
okay.
Out of this entire book, what are you most excited for people to see? What's your favorite little snippet that you can share?
Um, I'm gonna say finally having Storm Shadow's stats and the Arashikage better represented, because like I talked about earlier, they are kind of this deep foundational since the first toy line, and since early in the 80s when this was new and was coming together, to shine a light on that and to welcome players into that environment with the tools that the Ninja Clan uses, and also NPCs and characters, especially bringing Storm Shadow to the game. And I'm just really happy that we were able to do that. And again, reach these sections that are not covered by a normal GI Joe campaign.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it sounds like it's going to be an awesome book. Thank you, Ben, for answering all these questions and telling
Oh,
us all
happy
about
to.
this book. And thank you all for staying tuned and watching. So keep an eye out for the GI Joe role-playing game Intercontinental Adventures Factions in Action Volume 2 source book. Keep an eye on our socials, follow us on social media, check back on our YouTube channel, do all the good things, join our Discord server, join our Facebook groups, so you can be the first one to know when this book releases. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody, and yo, Joe!
Yo, Joe!